As you can imagine, there is no distinct line that exists between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. It's a continuum. So heat-related illnesses start just when you go outside and it's really hot and you start to sweat and then you feel weak and you feel tired. That is the early signs and effects of the heat taking its toll on your body. And then it can actually progress, and it can progress to an extent. And in the worst case scenario, we have heat stroke, which isn't an actual stroke. It's very different from a stroke, but it's the same term, so it's easy to get confused. A stroke in its traditional sense is a lack of blood supply to a certain area of the brain. And we know strokes cause symptoms like weakness on one side of the body or difficult with speech. A heat stroke tends to affect the body overall as a whole much more. So heat stroke, working backwards, is the most severe representation of a heat-related temperature injury to the body, and in particular the brain, because that's what tends to get affected most severely, and it's the most pronounced. So people get confused, disoriented. They lose their ability to regulate their internal temperatures. And so, everybody knows that their normal body temperature is 98.6. And what happens is that when you start to get hot, you sweat, and then you do other things, your blood vessels dilate, and that's in order to compensate for the hot temperatures outside. With heat stroke, you actually lose that ability. So your core body temperature actually increases, and some people might even report feeling cold when their body is actually too hot. They lose the ability to sweat, and all those regulatory mechanisms that we have, they fall apart. Preceding heat stroke is heat exhaustion. So it's what occurs right before it. Heat exhaustion is when you just feel extraordinarily wiped out. This isn't just tired from a long day or just feeling worn out. This is absolute exhaustion where you can't get your energy and you just can't seem to function like you normally would. But your temperature remains the same, and you're not confused when you have heat exhaustion. You still have all your faculties, but it can lead to heat stroke if you don't correct it. So the quickest way to correct that is to go inside and cool down. Make sure that you're drinking a lot of fluids. Fluids not only keep you hydrated, but if you're drinking cold fluids, they keep your core temperature down as well. And then preceding that, people can have other heat-related injuries. We know sunburns from going outside with sunscreen or just staying out too long is a heat-related injury. Dehydration is something that we see a lot with people that spend a long period of time outside because we sweat, and that's to help regulate our temperature, but you also lose fluid and you lose electrolytes when you sweat. So staying hydrated when you're outside, especially in the heat, is really important because it can, prevent that lead up to heat exhaustion or heat stroke.